server. Okay, I guess this is the last part. The game content. We have to plan the release of the game content. And most of the time, we have to rely on research and statistics. We do item rareness versus power. Sometimes when you see a single virtual item, okay, we have to strike the balance between how powerful this item can be to you or how rare it is in the community. Both have got the equal weightage in terms of how much a gamer would want a certain item. For example, if I would just release 3 pieces of this little uniform, this little outfit in the server, it would have the same kind of value versus another 10 pieces of this item that gives you a higher power. That is what I meant. Right? So we have to strike that very delicate balance to make sure that, you know, certain items, the rate that is being given up could not be too, we call imba. We cannot allow the gamers to get too many of certain items so that there's value and there's also a certain goal and vision that each of the gamers would like to have. And we also do FGD. We monitor the economy. It might be interesting to know that within each of the virtual games, there is always an economy, all right? There's always supply and demand, and this plays a very important part in any MMORPG. And we do grouping and promotional schemes in terms of content and item. Because we look at the game balance, we have to look at the rate of play to see what is the amount of time that it actually takes you to play from level 1 to the end game content? What are the recurring content that you could do? And also, in terms of localization, we look at the general feel that we want to give to the game, okay? And whether it can make a context. Some of the games that we brought in are from Korea. And when we get the Korean text, and if you try to translate the Korean text literally, it usually sounds very funny, okay? I'll just share an example from you. We have one of these days when I was doing some testing on a game, I found this monster called the Zebra Eater. Zebra Eater. I tried to investigate. I say, what is Zebra Eater? How can there be a Zebra Eater? Then I have to look at the monster. The monster is a striped spider that looks like a zebra. So when you translate literally from the Korean text, it becomes Zebra Eater. All right? So we had to really, look at what the monster is like and then draw it according to the context. And that's what I meant here. Okay, of course, there are other components. There are marketing that we need to do to get the gamers to be aware of the game titles. We have been doing a lot of online marketing, social networking. There are legal components that we need to look at. Finance, we need to plan quarterly budgets, sales channels. Okay, boring stuff. Okay, these are some of the material that we produce. We have to produce all these things within the company. Okay, a typical life cycle of an online game. So we look at where the first part, when we receive a build, we call it the build, the first time that the game actually comes into the company. We call it the alpha testing. We do the testing where it's very raw and buggy. There's a lot of localization errors and all that. We need to conduct a good 1 to 2 months testing. Then it goes into a closed beta where we select some of our gamers, some of the qualified gamers to actually help us with the testing. Then it goes into open beta testing. Okay, where we open it up to the general public to play free of charge. And then we go into commercial, where we start to release items, cash items, in which the players can buy voluntarily. Okay, that is basically what I've covered so far in terms of how we have been managing. Of course, there's a lot of other information, other details, which if you are interested, you could always come to me later on if you've got questions later on. But I'd like to share some because I was giving another talk back in Singapore about the future of online games. And I find it, I will just condense it into a few points. The first thing that I'm seeing in the online games is it's slowly going into virtualizations. By virtualization, it means that in the past, we have always put certain game functions to each of the physical servers. But as the virtualization, we call it the VM technology, has reached a certain maturity, we were able to set up server farms and cloud computing, which is actually the next thing, cloud computing, where you consolidate computing power, consolidate RAM, consolidate all the items, and be able to serve multiple virtual instances of an operating system. That is the future. And by doing that, it effectively means that we could then cut down the amount of wastage in terms of computing power. Sometimes we have 20 servers, but a good 50% of them are running below 50% utilization. So by doing virtualization, we would be able to make sure that we don't waste this. If it's really 100%, it's 100% running off 5 sets of servers. And that's what we are seeking out to do so far. The next thing is slowly going into casual. I start to recognize this when I see my wife pressing on her iPhone non-stop every time I'm driving. And I ask her what she's doing. She's playing Blitz, what's that? Visual Blitz. And she's been trying to be the top among all her friends in terms of score. She has so far been able to hit 650,000 as a score. So she tells me that, wow, that's so exciting. And that is what I meant by casual. The ladies, the kids, okay, are all jumping onto online gamings. They are doing it here, there, everywhere with their mobile phones, all right? And that is what I meant by everybody really jumping onto the online game. Okay, that actually brings me to the end of my presentation. Actually, before I started the presentation, I was getting a bit nervous because back in Singapore, whenever I do such speeches or such presentation, nobody actually puts up their hands because Asians and Singapore kids are not used to putting up hands. But when I saw you guys all putting up your hands, I was like, oh shit. But I'm still prepared. I have had a disclaimer that I'm here to share information. Essentially, what you have seen so far, there's no right and wrong information. It is all a very niche market. It is a market that takes a lot of flexibility. Okay, so let me open up. I've got 6 more prizes to give out, so let it be 6 more questions. Can we have the mic, please?